a photo. I'm always afraid I'm going to actually just start this as a single photo instead of an actual video, and then poor people trying to watch a video just get one picture. Doesn't work very well. All right, so here, this is a continuation. How do we set particular goals? Unfortunate reality is most people are terrible at goal setting. Seriously. We set our goals for the wrong things. And in sports psych, we need to make sure that we are considering what particular focused components you are trying to accomplish. Now, let's say I want to win the NCAA for whatever sport. Great. Is that a realistic goal? Sure. Is it an effectual goal? No. How do you start? What do you need in order to get yourself to the point where that final goal? So we set up series of goals that are accomplishable, things that we can manage. Otherwise, they're pointless. Saying, we want to win the NCAA. Great. What is your strategy? What are the sub-goals that are going to lead to that? Which means what? Let's say basketball, we're going to win the NCAA. What are the first goals that you have to set within that big goal? How do you break that down? Winning the conference is a great start. How do we decide how to win a conference? So tournament, how do we get into the tournament?
Well, all the teams are so complicated in the tournament, so you just have to...
Okay. And how are we going to think through our performance in the tournament if we don't have to worry about our placement in the tournament? Because we do have to worry about placement in the tournament, right?
Fair enough.
So our placement in the tournament indicates whether we're going to win it or not, as a general rule. Top seeds tend to win. Why?
Play the weaker opponents first.
You play the weaker opponents first. How do you know before the season starts who are going to be the stronger and weaker teams in any sport?
Based off of play.
Based off of?
Season games and also
Excellent. Yep.
like year before.
What's their track record? What's their history? So the research comes in. What do we get from that that individuals can make their goals from? Come on, throwing the line out. Come on, pull it in. What are the individual goals able to be set for then?
Like beating their rival.
Being their rival, which means understanding their strengths and weaknesses, right? And then comparing yourself with your strengths and weaknesses. Does everyone follow? I mean, sometimes these things are so obvious that they're difficult. We know all of this, it's just we don't talk about it in a simple, clear-cut way. The goals that you set have to be realistic for you, and then build the next goal. Accomplish, succeed, move on. Build, build, build. You want to win the NCAA, you have to win SoCon. You want to win SoCon tournament, you have to know your performance in each one of the games building up to it. The performance during the season. You want to win the season, you start preseason. Do you watch the games? Do you watch the films? What if there are a lot of freshmen on the other team? If they were in the McDonald's tournament, you watch the video of that. Otherwise, do you get the video from their high schools or whatever? Understand who they are. How were they coached? Is there a difference between, a brand new coach, Hubert Davis, and one of the most experienced coaches in the world, like Mike Krzyzewski? Yet they're both amazing. But the newness, you expect a new coach to lose a lot. You expect an established coach for 40 years to win a lot, right? It's obvious stuff, but we don't break it down like this. We set unrealistic goals instead of achievable goals, and then if we don't get it, all of the other goals didn't matter. But if we start with the small goals, so as an athlete, I had goals that sports psychologist in back, 70s and 80s, that was radical idea. The sports psychologist work with us is, all right, last year we won the NCAA, so here's how you're gonna contribute, here's how you're gonna contribute, here's how you're gonna contribute to the team so that we can win it again. We didn't win it for a couple of years, but still, that was a big thing, focusing on the goals. So if my goal is, might have to plug that in, someone left the plug, so. If my goal is, I'm a left midfielder, so therefore I have got to transition from offense to defense and defense to offense faster, because that's what makes or breaks a lacrosse game, is your transition. So, I'm going to focus on how I can read the field better. Does that sound familiar to football players? What's your primary job above delivering the ball? Reading the field, right? Back to the goalie for soccer. Back to the point guards for basketball. People that their job is to read the field. How do we read the field better? Making sense, fitting in. Okay. Those smaller goals, we then try and go into ways to better those goals and then fit them in. Because you have achieved a goal doesn't mean you dismiss it. It means you incorporate it into the next goal. And each goal builds and builds and builds, but we never drop the original goals out. And we come back to them occasionally. The reason why women's soccer in America, the Olympic team, has dominated international play for, 20-something years now. They've been internationally the best of all teams, is because they never stop working on basics. Why do the men's soccer professionals not win from the American team in international play? Does any of you watch soccer? And what happens every time American men play internationally? We do the super spectacular stuff. We do a lot of rainbow kicks. We do some bending. What do we miss out on more than everyone else?
Open net.
Yeah. Because we don't do simple passing well. Why does Lithuania beat the US in basketball so often? In international Olympic play? You ever watch that?
It's just that they just do the basics really well.
They do the basics super well. We're worried about, can I slam dunk? They're worried about, can I make sure this pass goes to that person who's more open than I am? Right? Focusing backwards instead of trying to go up to a super bigger level, focusing on bringing the whole team together. Make sense? All right. Getting tired of asking if it makes sense. I want you guys to be awake. You realize that teaching is performance art, and if your audience is asleep, it's really difficult and kind of diminishes me. All right, I already said that, so let's go through. Here's one of the great issues for us. Look at this gentleman. Tell me about this gentleman and his goals. What do you read from this?
It's like he's running up,
He looks like he's running up a mountain. Cool. What are the personal goals he is setting for himself? Just by looking at a picture, not knowing who it is or anything else.
Healthy lifestyle.
Healthy lifestyle, awesome.
he's an older gentleman, but he's still exercising vigorously, so it's like he's, putting emphasis on not aging and just letting his body deteriorate.
Awesome. So you kind of mentioned the 800-pound gorilla in the room. He's an older guy. Do older guys run for the same reasons that younger guys run? Is that important for you to think about the goals? He might be running for the Senior Olympics, but he's not running for the regular Olympics. He might be going to increase his vitality. He might have a 25-year-old wife. Who knows? We don't know that from here. But just looking, we can set an expectation of sets of goals that differ across the lifespan that we need to be able to speak of, or we miss it. A college athlete is going to have a very different set of goals from a high school athlete. The senior athlete is going to have a different set of goals. The way that we approach it, is it as intense for you to run up a mountain as it is for someone in my age group? No. We got fat and old and slow, and we can't do that much. 40 years ago, when I was your age, I could do, but now, no. So it's an understanding of what the goals are. So if we're thinking about the issue of commitment, does he require more or less commitment, or is it just a different commitment than the 20-year-old?
Say more.
More? Who says more? Raise your hand if you say more commitment. Okay. Who says less? No one says less. Who says it's a different kind of commitment? All right? Those of you who say it's a different kind, tell me what kind. Expound upon that a bit.
It's a different kind of commitment because it's different goals, and like you were talking about, like my grandfather is a big CrossFitter, and his goal, and the person that he's probably working up to, who has goals for CrossFit competitions, is they have the same level of commitment because they're both showing up every day. But you've got a 20-year-old who's competing for Open for this like big CrossFit competition worldwide, and then you've got, on the other hand, my grandmother who's just trying to stay in shape so he can still play with his grandkids.
Awesome. What else?
Does that affect your commitment, or does that affect just the goal that you're committing? Is that the reason?
That's a really good question. What is the relationship between commitment and goals? Is it automatically the same? They're separate issues for a reason. They are related, but they are separate. Follow? What's the other, some of the others of you that had your hand? Yeah.
I would just say like the amount of mental commitment would be greater. So not necessarily more commitment, but I would say it's different because you can have the same level of commitment, like I'm doing X amount a day, every day, and that's the same, level of commitment as someone who is another age. But it takes a different kind of commitment because you're recognizing that, well, my body can't do certain things that it used to, so I have to work a little harder to be where the younger person is.
Fantastic. Everyone follow along with that? Anyone disagree with that, by the way? Good. All right. Sorry, I can't even read my own screen anymore, because I think I told you I have cataracts, so even with glasses I can't read the screen. So I apologize for turning my head so often to the screen. I've taught classes for years on how to teach, and one of the first things I tell them is never look at the screen, never point to the screen unless you're pointing out a particular thing. And now, in my old age, I'm having to look at the screen to understand and read it. The goal intensity, I want you to think beyond this, because this is reaching a goal. I want you to think more about identity. How do you identify yourself in relation to these goals? It's a deeper question, a much more pertinent question, though. So let's say Michael is our brand new quarterback, going to compete, hopefully become the new first string quarterback here at Sanford. Transfers in. Does Michael have the same set of expectations for his goals as someone who has been here for a couple of years trying to work into the same spot? Why not? I saw good head shakes back there. Why not?
Because somebody who's been here for a while knows more of, I guess, just aspects of the environment or the relationships or the dynamics of, I don't know.
Social dynamics is hugely important, yeah. Whitman, did you have some?
We have very different types of goals at the end of the day. If you're already here, your goal is probably to keep the position or stay where you are versus this goal to be more towards, gotta push further up.
So the one who's here might have a goal because they consider it a right, because they've been here, they've put in the time. So they think of him as an interloper then. How dare he take my spot? Right? Those are real concerns. How do we make sure that Michael gets it though? Because he's the one in the classroom. She's the one I care about. How do we make sure that they might have the same final goal, being the first string quarterback? What are the sub goals building, right? And the level of intensity. What if you have something to prove? Let's say that a couple of you in the narratives that you've presented to me have said something to the effect of you were not picked up by a different school, or you didn't want, you wanted to go somewhere else as well and couldn't decide or something. Now you're here and you really want to make sure to show them and make them feel they should have valued you more wherever you were. Those are my words, not any of yours. Is that a different goal than someone who came here and knew they were going to have to fight for it? Right? What's the down part of that then, if you're working with the student here to become the next first string quarterback? How would you help that person? Just from this one thing of goal intensity. What do you think? No, scratch up there still. You think, raise your hands.
I guess because they have different goals, because the two you have different goals, you would kind of have to focus more on like your, I guess like your identity in that goal, like as you are partaking in whatever sport you're doing, like it's important to kind of like remember your spot. Like it's like that goes back to identity, I guess, because like I think that would be important if I hope that makes sense.
It does. This is a difficult thing to think through, though. That's why I want you to try, because remember, this is college. It's not high school. We don't just tell you stuff. You have to think through. Yeah.
I think the athlete that is comes in with the goal of oh, I have to prove myself because the school didn't want me. In a sense, that can almost hinder them because their goal isn't fully for themselves. It's just, okay, let me get to this certain point so that I can show these people that they were wrong. Whereas the athlete that is no, I need to improve for this reason because I want this position or something like that. It's more for themselves, and they're going to continue to push themselves and maybe not stop once they've reached that first goal. Whereas the others might and go, okay, I've proved them, and then just kind of chill out.
So you're recognizing that I had set up an artificial dichotomy in my example? Awesome. You see why that's an artificial dichotomy that I had set up in the example? You're a philosophy major, right? Why is it an artificial dichotomy? You guys live and breathe artificial dichotomies. Can you think through that one? bail them out?
I have a thought, maybe, like.
Excellent.
Like how she was, like, when you talk about the dichotomy, it's kind of like the intrinsic, extrinsic thing, like, where one of them is kind of just like a revenge, extrinsic motivated, where it's about other people, why they're doing what they're doing, and then the other one is like more so like she said, like for themselves, and their motivations and their goals are influenced directly, like because of their own desires, like not because of what anybody else like necessarily thinking or expecting of them.
That's a really good way to think about it. I would want to caution you, because both of them are thinking externally, but it's the external focus of the situation here versus the situation there, but they are both focused on external agents. I have my right, I am still thinking about this situation here at Samford, for example. I have earned through, that's external, but in this situation. I have to prove them wrong, it's external, but it's past situation, it's not the current situation. Does everyone follow? So both of them, you have to actually get to the point where they let go and just focus on the simple goals. What does it take to become the first string quarterback at Samford?
A lot of things. I don't know if you're asking me or.
I'm asking you, yeah.
I mean, you have to learn the offense, get familiar with your teammates. There's just, like, for example, a person who's already here, right? He's familiar with the team, the offense, how everything works, a bunch of different things. Me, I'm coming in, now I am from Birmingham, and I know a bunch of people here, that's one of the reasons I came, but I'm still learning, all the team, the offense, and all that. So there's different things that you have to, like, for example, he's been here for a little bit, so he's trying to, why I not played in a couple of years. I've been bouncing around school, so I'm coming through here. Does that make sense? So there's different kind of motivations for both people.
Are there also the issues with who gets along with the coaches, who has the visible work ethic versus the actual work ethic? Those things come to mind for you?
Says a little bit.
Have any of you ever seen a situation where a lesser player gets more playing time because I don't even need to finish that, do I? You're able to fill in so many variables there. That becomes a big part of this. The nuances are part of the job of a sports psychologist, is to tease out. For each one of these, that's what I keep trying to get back to, is getting you to think through, how do I tease out? If I set up an artificial dichotomy, we have to think, what are the salient features of the dichotomy itself that promulgate one perspective or antagonize a different perspective? What are we missing? When can I not see the forest because of all these trees? How's that a different way of saying the same thing? My computer is going to sleep on me. All right. My computer is very tired. All right. We've already talked about this. This is effectively what I've been saying. Setting up proximal goals, setting up distal goals. Distal is distant, right? If you're going to work with an athlete on their goals, and they start out with something like, I want to win the NCAA. Super-de-duper. Hallelujah. You'll lose the ring like I lost the ring somewhere in my mother's house and we sold the house. I don't care. That's all right. Seriously. When my mother died, I couldn't find the ring that I left at her house. I was so sad. And I went, what do I care? It meant everything at the time. 87, that ring was like, ugh. Now, whatever. You grow old. We start considering, how do I want to improve myself? What's something I can measure today? that by the end of practice today, I can achieve? What's gonna be for this week? What's gonna be for next week? What's gonna be for next month? What's it gonna be for the end of this season? If we don't set up the hierarchies of goals, we're never gonna accomplish any of them. The successful athlete does this intrinsically. It's automatic. They don't even know that they're doing it sometimes. But that's not why we're taking this class. We're taking this class to think through things that are sometimes obvious, but we miss. Sometimes we miss what's right in front of us. All right. Continue here. I've already mentioned these things. That's the nice thing about some of these chapters is that we will, oh, sorry, there was important stuff right there. Everyone familiar with disequilibrium? You learned about it in Gen Psych, you've learned about it in a bunch of other courses. If you've taken S&P or stats, you've learned about disequilibrium. Everyone follows this? Okay. Then we get here, inhibition goals. Sometimes our goals are not the exhibition, they're inhibition. They're not elicitation of something, they're repression of something. I want you to think about what are goals that you might have. If I teach a course on counseling, one of the first things that I have to teach is how to listen. Have all of you heard this from the other professors here? We changed the way that you listen so that instead of listening to respond, you listen to understand. You've heard it in some form or other from everyone in this department. It's just how they say it, and it's just going to change, but the sentiment is there. The same thing happens with us with an athlete. It's not just what do you want to accomplish, it's what do you want to stop doing? What do you want to stop? Sometimes it's we need to stop an alternate image. We need to stop you thinking about failure. We need to stop you thinking about embarrassment. We need to stop you from thinking about your evaluation. Here's something to try. Talk to your friends over the next day, so that on Thursday, if I ask you, have you asked any of your friends issues about what they would like to stop doing in order to achieve at a goal? Do you think you'd be able to find something? And it might be someone who is not an athlete, who has nothing to do with athletics, but they will still have these inhibition goals. Abstaining from behavior. So I have this self-fulfilling prophecy of failure because I self-sabotage. We talked about Michael Phelps self-sabotaging during those games where he ate a whole pizza before a meet because he was afraid of becoming the world's greatest or whatever. Self-sabotage. How do we diminish some of those behaviors? With imaging. If you're so worried about failure, you don't ever let yourself succeed. How do we diminish that? You're worried about passing an exam because you need a certain GPA to get into your favorite grad school. But you also have this other bad behavior that you desperately want to binge the entire new series of Emily in Paris. It is food porn, it's okay. That's how it was described in the New York Times the other day. Food porn. I thought that was hilarious. Heard the expression enough times, but yeah. What habits do your friends have? Not asking you what your habits, of course. But ask your friends what habits they have that would allow goals to succeed if they got rid of. And that's something that I think would help us on Thursday. I don't know the school rules yet for Bashinsky or any of the other things here, so I will assume that they require you to wear non-marking soles on the basketball court there. On Thursday, I believe that Bucky said that he would have some balls for me.
He doesn't talk to me about it.
Okay, can you ask him for me? Make sure that we have like one of the rolling racks of balls or something. What we're gonna be doing is spending probably a good hour, because once you get it and you see it, you'll understand it. But until you actually do it, it's gonna seem weird. And I'm gonna keep recording this for just a moment here. Apologize for taking this off, but it'll help. What we're going to be doing is, you're gonna bring a ball cap if you can. I have a couple of them, 4 or 5. And we're going to pin a piece of cloth across the front. You're going to learn, without your ball cap on, or with it on without the blindfold, you're gonna learn, or just reiterate to yourself, reinforce that you know, how to shoot a foul shot. You're going to learn the basic muscle movements for you, how you shoot a foul shot. And it's gonna be different for everyone. But we wanna work on muscle memory, we wanna work on anxiety. There will be anxiety for some of you in shooting a foul shot. There are certain social expectations, there are certain dissuasions, etc. So you're going to learn, there are gonna be a couple people to help you learn, bounce, bounce, because you all have to have your routine, and shoot. And after you have made one, then we're gonna ask you to blindfold yourself and feel. Make sure your feet are in the right spot, because that's the first goal I'm gonna set for every one of you. See where your feet are when you actually hit the goal. First rule in sports psych, build on success. And you're going to start there and you're gonna shoot, and then you're gonna be blindfolded and shoot. And we're probably gonna have a couple videos, even if it's just with my phone. We're gonna record some, because some of you might not believe that you can shoot blindfolded. But you're reducing the social anxiety and you're building a new kind of anxiety in there. It's an insecurity that we're building into it. And if you can recognize that and let it go, you'll find that most of you will wind up shooting 9 out of 10 blindfolded, if you can shoot 1. It's an astonishing, it's a fun thing. You're all gonna be different. Some of you are gonna just do great with it. Others might never be able to make a single one, and it's okay. But the principle is about sports psych. It's not about basketball, okay? Please make sure you recognize that. We are not playing basketball. We're using basketball as a way to demonstrate these principles. I will see all of you on Thursday at Bashinsky at 1 o'clock or whatever this course starts. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello. I'll actually turn this off since it's
Oh.
still recording.
So-
Awkward.